CS1010X Lecture 12, Object-Oriented Programming.
Now, before we go into today's agenda, I would like to take some time to go over what we saw 2 weeks ago, where we discussed generate operators. So the key idea in generate operators is that we have different data representations, and different representations require different functions to operate on them. So the problem is how to match the correct function to the appropriate representation. So the first idea is this approach called dispatch on type. And essentially, this dispatch on type approach is just a bunch of if-else statements. So you look at the data type, you look at if it's this type, you call this function. If it's this other type, you call another function, and so forth. So for every data type, you need to have an extra clause, right, to take care of that type. The second idea is this thing called data-directed programming. In data-directed programming, what you do is that you take the functions that operate on a data type and put all of them in some lookup table. So when you get a new data object, right, what you do is that you look at the type, and based on the type of the object, you go to the table to find the correct function and take the function, you apply it on that object. Now the third one, which we discussed mostly in presentation, is this thing called message passing. So the general idea is that instead of having to look for the function to apply on data type, the function is itself embedded in the data. So the data knows what to do, and all you need to do is to tell the data to do its thing, right? So this is message passing. So the high-level idea here is that you don't really want to figure out what function to call when you are given a data type. And essentially what you do is you build an extra abstraction layer, right, that insulates you from having to do this. Object-oriented programming essentially combines two ideas that we've seen before. The first is what you've seen earlier under generate operations, or this idea of message passing. And the second idea is this idea of object-based abstractions. Remember, essentially you need to create new abstract data types. You figure out what's the representation that you need to keep track of the data. And then you have these functions that will allow you to do the right things. So essentially you combine the two and you have object-oriented programming. The main theme is that we now want to deal with abstract data types with state, right, that can have diverse implementations and can operate through a common interface. The major concepts are the following: classes, instances, methods, message passing, inheritance, and polymorphism. We'll cover each of these topics in turn. Okay, let's talk about the first one, the class. A class is actually a blueprint that defines the properties and behavior of a whole class of objects. So, for example, your students, right? So, all of you belong to the class students. Now, each of you are individuals of the same class, students, right? And this is called instance. So an instance is a particular entity object of a class. So each of you are particular instances of the student class. The instance is the actual usable object that's created from the blueprint of the class. It turns out that Python already has built-in support for object-oriented programming, so there's a lot of stuff that you don't really need to take care of, right? That Python will take care of for you. And essentially, the main thing that Python does is to take care of the message passing protocol. Okay, we'll talk about that soon. Okay, so first let's look at the example called the bank account. First, in the class, you have this thing called init, right? The init is actually a constructor, right? So it takes in this case, initial balance, right? And it also takes in this self parameter. This self parameter is actually the pointer or the reference to a created object. So when the bank account object is created, right, there's this object, and init will be able to refer to the object using the self pointer. So here you do self, okay, and inside self pointer you can have different variables and state. So here we set the balance state to the initial balance, right? And it turns out that under this bank account class, okay, there's also other functions. So this is the constructor, right? There's another function called withdraw, and interestingly, these functions that are embedded inside an object, these are called methods, right? So withdraw, what does it do? It actually allows you to withdraw an amount. So if the self.amount is more than an amount, okay, you will minus away this amount, right? Okay, after that, what you do is return the balance. Okay, if you don't have enough money, okay, that means your self balance is less than amount. Obviously, you can't withdraw, so you return money not enough. Okay, so this is not just a bank account where you can take out money, like you also put in money if you need money to be taken out, right? So Here you can deposit, okay, an amount, and then you take your self pointer, okay, the reference to yourself, and you find the associated balance variable, and you add now the amount, okay, and you return the balance. So what is this init thing again? It's actually a function that's called when an object is first initialized, okay. So the self argument, as I mentioned before, right, it's a reference to the object, okay, calling the method. And it allows the method to refer to properties and other methods of the same object, okay, not just class. Okay, other special methods, yes, they are. And the special Python methods for objects have this underscore in front, underscore behind. And you can go read up online to see what the other methods are. You can use them if you want to, but you're not required to know them, and we won't cover them in this class, okay? Because this class is not about Python, it's about programming concepts that are common to all programming languages. So let's take a look at this example again. Okay, what you can do is that we can do BankAccount, okay, and then BankAccount 100. So when you call this objects class, right, and you put in some number here, you are essentially calling a constructor, okay, and you create a new object with this input parameters, which is 100. And then now you try to withdraw $40, you have $60. You try to withdraw 200, you only have $100, minus 40, 60, right? So you can't do this. And then the money not enough. You put in money, it's okay, 80 now. Now, is there anything new that we just saw? Well, it turns out that in the previous lecture you saw this, right? You saw list equal to this, okay? And you saw list.append, okay? So what's happening here is that this is a dot notation to allow you to call this method inside list. And of course, list is this thing, right? So list is actually a class by itself. It's a list class, and append is actually a method within this list class. The new so-called syntax that you've seen is not really new. You've just been using it earlier. You didn't really know that it's actually OOP way of calling functions or methods. And hopefully now it's clearer. Okay, and just like withdraw is a method defined in the bank account, your append is also a method that is defined inside this class. Okay, let's take a look at how to connect what we just seen with what we've learned before. Okay, in the past, when we just learned about data abstraction, you might do the following. You may create an account, give it a name and a balance, and then you return this tuple, right? That is a name, the balance. Right, then you have this bunch of functions which allow you to access and mutate the class. So you can do like get name, get balance, get set balance. Set balance, what we do is we get the name, the account, and then we make a new account, and then we set the balance. Right, then you can deposit money this way. Okay, you basically get an account and a val, which is a value to deposit. You get a balance, okay, and then you set the balance. Right, so withdraw, you can do something else. Right, so then you do what? Bank account is make account ban 1000, deposit is bank account 40, print get balance bank account. Well, it turns out this doesn't actually work, lah. Okay, sorry, so I just give you some code that doesn't work, but it seems to work, right? So now, as homework, right, you get to go back and look at this code, okay, run it and see that it fails, and see if you can fix it, right? And then you can post something in the forum page.